Aloha and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where each week during the legislative session we give you a chance to hear directly from your state senators about what's going on here at the Capitol. Homelessness continues to challenge Hawaii's communities. One of the most difficult aspects of dealing with Hawaii's homeless population is appropriate treatment for the mentally ill living on our streets. Joining us today to talk about legislative initiatives that could mark a significant change in evaluating and treating this challenging population is Senator Carl Rhodes, who represents the 13th District, which includes Dowsett Highlands, Pu'unui, Nu'uanu, Pacific Heights, Pa'oa, Punch Bowl, Palama, Liliha, Iwalei, Chinatown, and downtown. Thank you, Senator, for being here. That's a long list, a big area. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
I think it's clear to anyone who's been paying attention that the homeless population deals with a variety of challenges. And mental illness seems to be one of the hardest to address.
It is because, as most of us are familiar with either from working downtown or just from our own neighborhoods, you see people who, even as someone who's not a medical doctor, your guess is that they're not in their right mind. And unfortunately, many of the homeless are mentally ill, and some of them seriously mentally ill. And it does pose a big problem because most of them don't realize that they're even sick at all. And so it's not like if you broke your leg or something, you know there's something wrong because it hurts, and you go in and you get it fixed. Even if you don't have insurance, you'll end up at the emergency room. With the seriously mentally ill, they don't have any recognition, or if they're really far gone, they have no recognition that they're sick at all. And so they tend to refuse treatment. In fact, I encountered a woman once who, we asked her if everything was okay, and she said, yeah, everything's fine. And, well, do you want any help? And she's like, no, I don't need any help. Everything's fine, just leave me alone. Well, she had been lying in the same spot on a sidewalk on Smith Street in Chinatown for about 3 months, urinating and defecating on herself in the street, but she was convinced that everything was fine. So we're trying to address that. When I was first elected to office a number of years ago, I promised myself I would work on problems even if they were virtually impossible to solve. And I have to say this is one of the ones that has been very challenging to make a dent in. My predecessor, Susie Chun Oakland, in 2013 passed a bill called the Assisted Community Treatment Act. And we had very high hopes for it. I was judiciary chair in the House at the time. And we had hoped that, well, basically what assisted community treatment does is says a psychiatrist can go out and diagnose somebody, and if they have a serious mental illness, and you have, then just about anybody, any interested party, which can be just about anybody, can go to family court and ask that they have that the judge order them to do a medical program, which can include taking drugs. And some of the drugs, some of the prescriptions they have these days are very, very effective with certain kinds of serious mental illness. But we've had a few successes, and we've gotten a few people off the streets because of it, but not anything close to what we had hoped for. And there's still probably, I can think of in my own neighborhood, I live in Chinatown, I can think of my own neighborhood probably 50 people who would benefit from some kind of a medical program. But the choke point so far has been that we don't have enough lawyers to take the cases into petition, because the seriously mentally ill, they don't have lawyers. Often they're estranged from their families can't help, or their families can't afford to pay for the lawyer. So one of the bills, I've introduced several bills this session to try to streamline the process for ACT, assisted community treatment, and one of them is to make it so that the Attorney General's office will be the one who brings these petitions in family court to try to get more people under this into this ACT program and to get them the treatment they need.
And who would initiate those petitions?
Well, as I mentioned, it's an interested party, which is just about anybody. Mm-hmm. So conceivably you could have somebody, if someone was living in front of you, sleeping in your doorstep at your business, the business owner could file a petition on their behalf. It could be family, it could be the government, it could be a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. Just about anybody is able to bring a petition.
And what would happen once the petition was filed?
Well, then you have to go to family court, and then a judge, there's a list of about 6 or 7 hoops you have to jump through before you can take away this person's liberty interest, basically. When we make medical decisions for incapacitated people, legally incapacitated people all the time, for children, your parents, they get to tell you, you have to take your vaccine, or you have to go to the doctor. for people with dementia or forms of old conditions brought on by old age, we will make medical decisions for them. This is a way to make medical decisions for another group of people who are incapacitated. Having said that, they're adults. They do have if they have decisional capacity and they want to say no, our Constitution protects that. And so there's been a pretty major hurdle in just trying to differentiate. I mean, there's a lot of protections in the bill to be sure that we don't medicate people that we shouldn't be medicating, but there's been a lot of reluctance to, when someone's actively saying no, I don't want treatment, to make them take it. But like I said, part of the mental illness is that you don't realize that you have a mental illness. So I think there's good examples of other situations where we make the decisions for other people if they are unable to for some reason. And I think we need to get to the point with the seriously mentally ill where once we've jumped through the legal hoops, we should be able to put you on a medical program.
And within these bills, there's a slight change in what qualifies.
Yes, we try to streamline it a little bit by making it the standard a little easier. So I think the technical language is right now it's imminently dangerous, and we're hoping to change it to danger to yourself or others, which is a little easier standard to meet.
And you're not talking about institutionalizing these people. They're treated on the street, or they're given treatment, but not in an inpatient.
That's the hope. I mean, if you do something really bad as a mentally ill person, you do end up in the state hospital. But we're trying to cut people off at the pass before they do something really bad. Most of the mentally ill are no more prone to criminal activity than anybody else. Most of them just want to be left alone and leave me on my street corner and just leave me alone. But occasionally, unfortunately, we have they've murdered people. Right. And there was one fairly recently up near the Y on Poly Highway where a person who had just been sent into Queens for what they call a mental health 1, which is just a form number, but they'd been evaluated and released, and he killed somebody a little while later. There was a case on Kauai several years ago where there was actually a petition to involuntarily commit him, and the judge threw it out, and the next day he killed somebody and he was shot dead by police. So unfortunately, in the minority of cases, every once in a while, it's rare, but they're not in this world at this point, and they're answering to other voices, not from this planet.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. We're going to keep an eye on these. They're moving through. They're all in the House now in Finance. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thanks to Olelo for making this time available, and we'll see you next time live at the Legislature.